Welcome to the Write Your Own Story podcast. I'm your host, Betsy Leonidas, and the founder of the Write Your Own Story company. Girl, I can tell you right now, you are definitely enough. Here we value service, sisterhood, connection, laughter, and that super genuine, keep it real, tell you like it is honesty. My hope is at the end of each episode, you realize you can do whatever it is you dream about and that you are not alone with what you struggle with. I'm hoping that you are snapping and clapping and hell yes in your way through each one of these episodes. So if this tracks with you, let's get started. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back to the Write Your Own Story podcast. Today's conversation is an important one because we're talking about money. And if you're like most women, that probably comes with a little or a lot of discomfort. We rarely are taught to talk about money, ask for what we deserve, or feel confident owning our economic power. Instead, we're taught to be grateful and flexible and quiet about our needs. In this episode, I'm joined by Nancy Griffin, the founder of Women, Worth, and Wellness, whose work sits at the powerful intersections of women's health, wealth, and self-worth. Together, we explore what economic power really looks like for women, how health and confidence and money are deeply connected, and how women can stop unintentionally giving their power away with real direct steps about how to step in our power and gain it back. This conversation is about agency and leadership and building a future that actually supports the life you want to live. So let's dive in. Are there any sort of initial questions that you think are great ones or resources to go read that you can at least start the conversation with more than, I know nothing about investing my money, I Googled you and I found you, and this is all I've got.
All sorts of different books and, online tools that you can access before you go there if you feel that you need to. One of the opening questions or statements that you can make is, this is not something that I've made a priority, but this is something that I do want to make a priority. And that's why I booked some time to meet with you. So you've just simply said, you haven't said, I don't know anything about anything. Like, don't start with that kind of a comment. Just say, I've decided I want to make this a priority. I need to spend more time on all of this. And this is why I'm meeting with you. At which point in time, that person will then kick in his or her whole MO, which is starting to ask all the questions. They'll say, well, what are your priorities? Okay, well, let's do a whole inventory on assets and liabilities and, yada, yada, yada. This is what that person as a professional will do. And then it's just a dialogue back and forth. And if you don't understand, say, okay, take me through that again. Way back when I had a client who was 71 years old. She was just, one of those women with gray hair and sparkly eyes. And she had come to a seminar where one of the items that we talked about was borrowing to invest. And she decided she wanted to do that. So we met. She wants to do this. Well, of course, she's older. So as a wealth advisor, you've got to proceed with caution to make sure that the person clearly understands how this all works and why or why not this might be a good idea for her. So she repeated 2 or 3 times what she understood it was, including the benefits and the risks, to the point where I felt she understood, and I was satisfied as her wealth advisor that we could start with a very small amount borrowing to invest. So that dialogue is really, really, really important, so that nobody's missing.
Yeah, I think that lens, going back to the top of the conversation when you were saying that, so often we're afraid to ask questions because then we feel dumb or stupid and less worthy, etc. But this is your greatest asset, and the only way to become more educated is to ask the questions, and that is very much in their job description, to be the expert, but to bring you up to speed. When I also think about assets and liabilities and sitting down with that conversation and sort of the division of labor that you had mentioned within a household, so often, it's interesting, right? When I got divorced, I categorically knew sort of how much we both made. I knew, the types of bills that we paid, but my ex-husband was the one who paid all the bills, and I was the one who, managed all the family stuff. And so it's interesting, in the divorce process, I was like, oh my God, I have to find each vendor, and like, so I wish that we had, and on the flip side, he's like, oh my gosh, who is the kid's doctor? It's not because he was never a hands-on dad or because I wasn't financially savvy. We had just divided that labor so separately that when we became divorced, it was like, oh my gosh, there's such a disparity in knowledge. So it was a humbling, slightly painful, but in a good way, exercise to have to go through. And so when we think about assets and liabilities for anyone who maybe isn't as closely connected to their finances as they think they should be, this is every single bill that you pay. These are under your liabilities. It is like general operating costs outside of bills. And then if you think of your assets, it's all the money that's coming in. So it's your income, anything that comes in regularly. Your husband's income. So inheritance, I wouldn't necessarily put in that general operating bucket, because one of the big questions that my financial advisor asked me post-divorce was, okay, what is your monthly operating cost? How much money do we need to make sure is still in your savings? And then in your checking account, and what kind of sort of padding makes you feel comfortable? And then therefore, what's our investment plan? Not necessarily, we hadn't really gotten to the brass tacks of here's where we're investing yet, but like at what cadence am I pulling money out of your account to then put into investment, etc. Right. And that was some serious homework that I had to do, and I was embarrassed that I didn't know that information. But it was very empowering to find it. Exactly. And similar to if your guys are still married and you're like, oh gosh, there is this disparity of knowledge. Your husband, and let's say it was of similar division of labor and you do most of the family stuff, you should sit down and have that debrief of conversation with your husband about the family stuff as well. Even though I'm sure he's a very hands-on dad, just like my ex-husband was, but we just never really shared that kind of knowledge. And so there shouldn't be that kind of gaps, to your point, because then you just kind of...
Right. And you deepen your relationship as partners when you do have those conversations. You really do.
Yeah.
It isn't a big deal. And it really, really, really does make a difference. And sometimes the other person will say, well, do we really need to be paying that much? Mm-hmm. I was talking to somebody the other day and they got a better deal with blah, 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 whatever. But make sure you're having those joint conversations. The other thing that I want to highlight with a wealth plan is make sure that total wealth plan has anticipated health-related challenges. What happens if you are diagnosed with breast cancer? How are you going to deal with that? Are you working for a company that's going to cover your time off and some of those medical challenges? Or do you need to have separate insurance that's going to cover that? Same thing with a premature disability, and same thing with premature death. So a total wealth plan includes those total aspects of the what ifs, not just the investment account. It's also the what if, so that you're protected.
That's excellent advice. And then what is your thought around life insurance versus investment of assets, and sort of from a total portfolio?
Both. Life insurance is so incredibly powerful, but it's more often than not something that people avoid.
Yes.
Because they think it's going to be too expensive. I cannot afford that. You cannot afford not to have it, because we know more and more being sick is expensive.
Yes.
So look after your health, number one, as the AAA1 priority, not just today, but for the future. But then what if I do have a health related issue? Yeah. Can I afford to pay for it out of my earnings, my savings, whatever, or do I need to have separate protection? And that's where insurance comes into play. So again, make sure that wealth advisor, most are, not everybody is, but most are licensed for both investments as well as insurance.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I found as well, but obviously you were the expert. And I just had the life insurance conversation this month, and I was completely shocked as to how relatively affordable it is.
Exactly.
It's really like for, and it's interesting when you talk about life insurance, or at least the conversations that I've had and then conversations with friends on the side, it feels like, oh my God, I'm buying so much. But like, if you really think about the brass tacks of like, I have 4 children, like that gets divided, that big number gets divided real quick. But you want to be able to plan for that. And then you can even get into the details of like, okay, let's, heaven forbid, I die young. You can control
the rate at which the life insurance is divided out. You know, it's
Correct.
not just like, here, 18-year-old son, here's, you know, a lot of
Right.
money, etc. So there's really, truly, like, you can get into and think about just in great detail, which I find, I used to hate talking about money because it just felt so overwhelming. I don't like talking about money. I think it's complicated for women, and I think it's just complicated in general, right? You certainly don't want to be like, this is how much I've got, or oh my gosh, I don't have, etc. But it has been wildly empowering to be able to.
Right. Well, there you go. You are a perfect example of how your self-worth has been enhanced
It has.
through the empowerment of understanding this whole scenario. I want to share another example about an 18-year-old.
Oh, please.
I have a friend who was a guardian for a young person, their wealth scenario. So working with the wealth advisor, the 18-year-old became 18. So now we're having the meeting with the wealth advisor because the 18-year-old is going to take over that jurisdiction himself. So the conversation goes like this. The wealth advisor says to the 18-year-old, I've been managing this portfolio, and now I'm delighted to be working directly with you. But I have two requirements of you as my new client for this portfolio. One is you need to have a current will and estate plan. And the second is you need to have an accountant. So all of a sudden, this 18-year-old is getting banged over the head about his demise. This guy will go forward with such an incredible wealth scenario because he's already paying attention to what happens if I die? Where do I want to direct these dollars? What about life insurance? Of course, the best time to buy life insurance is when you're young and healthy.
Yes.
You don't leave it until you're 50 and think maybe you should have some. I mean, certainly then is still a good time. It's just going to be more expensive because you're that much older and probably that much more unhealthy. So really, really interesting. So the sooner you start talking to young people about all of this, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's like, these are the kind of things I'm like, I wish we had these like more basic classes growing up in education to be like, wait,
Right.
not just like econ and finance that I had to take in business. I'm like, what about Betsy econ and finance? Yeah.
Personal. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. This is incredible. I know that connecting to philanthropy is so important to you and the work that you do. And we've talked about, yes, of course, like it builds your sense of self, and it also, you know, helps your bottom line with a lower tax bill. But like, what else would you like to say about that?
It helps make a better world. You know, give more than you take. Focus on something other than yourself, and focus on yourself being that catalyst. You know, the person that I adore is Melinda French Gates.
Yes.
She's got all that money, but she is not wasting one penny on not making a difference with her dollars. So investing in different things and donating to different, you know, really, really very, very impressive. And we don't have to all be billionaires to make that difference. Volunteering our time can make a big difference. So it's just a whole focus on giving more than you take and being a catalyst to make a better world, however you think is the best way to do that.
I love that. It really, like, you can't take it with you.
No.
And it really does make the world a better place. I also would love to add to that, that like our ability to give comes and goes in seasons, right? Like,
Right.
And that's okay. And that, but like with the long-term goal of knowing, of getting back on your feet, to get back in that space of service, even time, or to your point, or, you know, financially, but to give yourself the grace if you've hit a season where you're like, oh gosh, I'm short on time and cash, just know that it's not forever. And yeah.
Exactly.
And to be creative, but to also like not, I think when we find ourselves in transition moments like that, it's important to realize that it's time to get creative, and in an empowering kind of way. You may not have been able to give your time or energy or money in the way that you used to, but that doesn't mean that you still can. And again, this whole like rediscovery and writing your own rules is incredibly empowering, and knowledge comes with it. So just continue to explore it. I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
Gosh, I feel like we have covered so much, everything from like why it is so critical to how to get the conversation started, from both a single person's construct, from your professional life. Oh, that's one more thing I would love to drill down on quickly, please. If you are in a professional setting, we know that you get your 401k, we know that you have your income. Is there anything else we should be thinking of in a professional setting, whether it's questions to our employers, what to do with our assets, options to explore, etc.?
Well, again, own whatever your benefits are.
Mm-hmm.
Really own them. Way back when I worked at Procter and Gamble, that was one of the things that I worked on when I was in HR, is the whole benefits package. And more than ever, for companies to make these affordable, you have choices. So really drill down on those choices. The other tip I will give you is if you're in a corporate role and you decide that you want to go into starting your own business, how many of those benefits can you transition personally? Because you will have options. But also, if you are in a corporate role with the intention to start your own business, maybe you should have your own suite of benefits sooner rather than later. To the point that I mentioned earlier, you're that much older and, what are the risks, this sort of thing. So really, really pay attention. And again, whether you're in a corporate role or you're wanting to start your own business or you're owning your own business, those are questions for the wealth advisor. This is what these are my aspirations. How would you recommend that I maximize my whole suite of coverage if this is my intention? And throw it over to that professional and expect them to answer and give you good guidance for you to ponder.
I love that. And know that, like, let's say, we know based on data that it takes, let's say you jump from the corporate world and go and start your own business. It takes an average of 2 to 5 years to become truly profitable. And that is where you get brilliant at what you do, and certainly more resilient. But how do you work with a wealth advisor to give you that nest egg to be able to last up to 5 years on not making an income, or not making at least the level of profitability and income that you thought you could be? And to be able to share that burden and, have an expert is a gift to yourself that you so deeply deserve.
Correct, because your mindset is around building your business. And trying to figure all this stuff out for yourself takes away from your ability to think about how you're going to build your business.
Absolutely. Okay, let's say someone is like, well, I can't afford a wealth advisor. What would you say to that?
Find a way to afford a wealth advisor. It's like going back to doing your own dental work. Really, really, you gotta work with somebody. One of the other options for a business owner is peer-to-peer advisory groups, because that's a way that you can learn a lot very easily. That's also a way to find trusted advisors, because somebody else is working with someone who they're raving about. So would that person be willing to take on new clients? And that's then a person to have an initial conversation with. So, you really want to direct your brain cells to building your business.
Yes.
And so find a way to take away a lot of these other issues that are really the foundation of your success by working with somebody else.
I love that. That is incredible advice. And for all those female founders out there listening, whether you are just thinking about getting started or even in the mix, this is nothing, I can speak from experience. It has been nothing but beneficial. And although prepping for the meetings, I'm like, ugh, because it's not an area of expertise for mine. So it always feels overwhelming. But every time I hang up the phone, I feel more empowered. I feel more confident in my wealth. I feel more excited and prepared for my future as it relates to my personal life and my business life. So,
right. Actually, one other source is chambers of commerce. And I know Cincinnati has a fabulous chamber of commerce.
Sure do.
So participate in some of those events. And more often than not, there will be experts presenting, or a panel of experts. So sign up, go for lunch, go for breakfast, hear what they have to say. If you like what they say, meet with them afterwards.
Well, this has been absolutely empowering. I'm so glad to be able to talk about money. I think women need to crank the volume up on this one and get comfortable being uncomfortable, because it doesn't last forever. This is such an important space. I truly stand behind, your money. Your connection to your money is your connection to your freedom. As sad as that reality feels sometimes, but like it gives you choice and agency, which every woman deeply deserves. So thank you for the work that you do, and thank you so much for your perspective. If you had one, for a woman listening who wants more agency and confidence and alignment in her money, what is sort of one last piece of advice or one last thing you'd love to hit home, even if we've already talked about it for her?
Just know that you are your greatest asset. You are your greatest treasure. And really, you have to honor yourself. Just know that you're the greatest asset and go get some help. There are people out there whose roles and professions are to help you be the very, very best that you can be. So make sure you're giving yourself that same respect and that same honor to know that you've got a right to live your life to the very best of your ability and that you are worthy.
Can I just replay that over and over and over again? That was literally so beautiful and lovely. Oh, thank you for that.
I'm hoping that Taylor Swift will want to do another world tour. And if she does, I'll be with her and it'll be a worthy tour.
Yes, a worthy tour. And you're like, I'm going to co-author those lyrics because you just dropped some serious truth bomb. That was incredible. Oh my gosh, Nancy, how can people connect with you if they want to work with you, if they have questions for you, for the things that you share?
Send me an email anytime. It's nancy@womenworthwellness.com. And the website is womenworthwellness.com. And our word for 2026 came about because of all of these podcasts that I've been on all over the world, like, up to 10 a week, which is amazing because this Women Worth and Wellness brand is stronger than ever. So the word for 2026 is amplify.
Ooh.
So find a way to amplify your own well-being, whatever you're up to. Find a way to bring your best forward and feel very, very proud of the fact that you are amplifying your best.
God, can we hang out all the time? I was like, are you also a motivational speaker? This has been absolutely incredible. You guys, please share this episode with every woman you can think of. Financial literacy is so important, financial empowerment, and let's amplify this message and spread it to those who need it. Nancy, thank you again so much for your time and your wisdom. And thank you everyone for listening. We will catch you next time. Okay, we're all set. Nancy, I'm not kidding. I'm going to call you on my bad days.
Anytime.
We decided how are we going to amplify everything that we do? So I've started a speaker series with accomplished women, and we're calling it Pearls of Wisdom. So short form is POWs. And every message or every time we have a guest speaker, we will recap those pearls. And at the end of the year, on December the 2nd, we're having an in-person that is called Crescendo. So it's like a symphony. We've got this instrument, we've got this, we've got this, with this, and then it will be in person. And hopefully all of these guest speakers will be present. And we will recap all those pearls from all the way along over the year.
I mean, you're basically Brene Brown. Incredible. I think that's so important to be able to, like you said, sort of just like, I think that's also like women's natural gift is to really like distill things into pearls of wisdom beyond,
Yes.
Like it's this like beautiful moment of reflection versus just progress. Both are important, but to be able to sort of take those pauses and then to your point, collect them all sounds really, really incredible. I'm going to see if
The other thing is this year is the year of the horse.
Yeah.
And if so much positivity, like there's no way you cannot bring your best forward one way or another because it's a license to be your best.
I agree. I am so ready for the year of the horse. The snake has got
bring
to
it
go.
on. Bring it on.
Yeah. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this reminder. Avoiding money conversations doesn't protect you, it keeps you stuck. And if today's episode resonated with you, then you are most definitely not alone. Most women struggle to talk about pricing, asking for the sale, money in their bank accounts, charging their work, and for what it's truly worth, not because they aren't capable, because no one taught us how. That's exactly why I'm hosting a February webinar called Pricing for Profitability. This isn't just about numbers, it's about getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, understanding the psychology behind pricing, and learning how to ask for what you deserve without shrinking or second-guessing yourself. I don't know about you, but this absolutely resonates with me, which is why I built the webinar. I have absolutely shrunk and second-guessed myself in the business world when it comes to talking about money, determining my pricing, but no more. And that's why we're gonna have this conversation in February. So if you're ready to stop underpricing, build real economic confidence, and create a business that supports your life and not drains it, I'd love for you to join us. You can save your spot at writeyourownstory.co. Look under the webinar series for pricing for profitability. Thank you for listening, for doing this work, and for being willing to have the conversation that changes everything. I'll catch you next time.
Well, that's the end of this episode, but promise me, you won't stop here with whatever it is you're feeling or dreaming about. I hope you leave today feeling empowered to live life just as you see fit. If this podcast was helpful to you, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a review on whatever platform you're listening on. I genuinely just want to help women live the life they dream about. So if this type of content tracks with you, subscribe to this podcast or visit our website, writeyourownstory.co, to download digital courses or to grab a journal and a mug to just dream in and dream with. It's your life, lady. Do you. And just remember, I'm rooting for you and you've totally got this.